You are listening to 3 Point Lead presented by Loeb's Leads, and you can hear it in my voice right now, guys. Post-Celtics game, the Boston Celtics are the 2024 NBA champions. They finally raised the 18th banner, officially again the winningest franchise in NBA history. We'll talk a little bit about that game very briefly, but this is a Cleveland-specific episode. We have a very cool interview with Chef Zae, the most iconic Cleveland Browns creator on the internet. We talk OTAs, training camp, offensive line, Cleveland culture, everything in between. It's going to be a great conversation. If you guys are into Cleveland and the Browns, you don't want to miss it. But before we say anything, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Better Picks. It's my favorite way to enjoy fantasy sports, where you can pick more or less on your favorite player's stats to win up to 1,000 times your entry. And right now, Better's offering a first deposit match of up to $250 if you go to my social and join with code LEADS. That's LEADS, all caps, on Better Picks. Without further ado, let's talk Celtics very briefly. Not too much needs to be said about this game. Not too much needs to be said about this series. The Boston Celtics were the best team in the NBA all season long. Never really felt like they were losing grip on a series. Never really felt like they were losing grip on the talent that they had either. Even with the injuries that they dealt with, Kristaps Porzingis missing a ton of the playoffs, this team never wavered. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, MVP debate, whatever you want to talk about with this team. Coach Mazzulla down. This team was extremely talented, extremely committed, extremely bought in, especially over the past 2 years, coming from a very difficult situation after the departure of Ime Udoka. This team deserved to win something, and it's great to see them do that. An unbelievable season for the Boston Celtics, my local fans, my local friends. Celebrate with me. I'm smoking a cigar after this podcast recording. But without further ado, let's get into the Cleveland Browns episode. We'll talk with Chef Zae coming up right now. We now welcome in Chef Zae, the most infamous Cleveland Browns creator on the internet, my partner in crime on Honor the Land. Zae, thank you so much for hopping on.
I appreciate you, buddy. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I am so excited to have you on for a couple of reasons. One, you have one of the coolest stories as a creator that I've heard. The content you make is awesome. But two, there is just so much to talk about with the Cleveland Browns right now. Hard knocks, minicamp, OTAs, and then as training camp approaches. But before we talk about anything Cleveland Browns, I do want to hear about your story as a creator, kind of the journey you've taken over the past few years to get where you're at now, as well as future plans that you're excited to talk about.
So started out with Ohio Media School, actually, to get into the realm. Every person that was in sports always kind of had a dream that's like, oh, I always want to go to the NFL or NBA or whatever the sport you played. And me being short, we always knew that the chances were slim to none. So I had the intention of being on ESPN in 5 years. That was my goal. Obviously, it didn't happen, but we're here now. And COVID happened, and I kind of drifted off into the streaming realm, which was Twitch, and became a streamer. I was streaming Call of Duty. Fortnite was super big at that time, so I was a Fortnite streamer, and was fortunate enough to have some viral videos on TikTok, and that was probably for a solid 4 or 5 months or so that I was full-time streaming Twitch. And then the Browns just so happened to be good in 2020. And we went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I was going live during the games through that season, but I wasn't commentating. I was just kind of like there, and we were just kind of vibing. And then for the playoff game, I was like, you know what? This is the first one of me being an adult. I got to watch this one by myself. Still had it on record, made a video. And next thing you know, that video went viral. So I'm like, maybe there's a little something to this Browns content creation. Next year, kind of slowly, each game I began to commentate more and more. And next thing you know, I believe it was the 2021 season or Jacoby season was when I really started to do the commentary thing. And, now we got the crock pot on wheels, which is what we're striving to get to. Doing the same experience that we do now, take that down to the Muni lot, Vegas, Pittsburgh, Cincy, try to do the whole 9 and do a tailgate and then have the same exact experience that we have each and every Sunday, but live with the fans. So
that's the goal. I love it. Yeah. Well, hopefully I'm part of that goal too, because I can't wait to get down to the Muni lot. We got 3 months until the NFL season kicks off pretty much. I know the Browns' first home game is the 8th against Dallas. I will definitely be there. I don't know about you, but I will definitely be at that game. And then oddly enough, my Giants come to town just 2 weeks after that. So that's going to be a whole family reunion. Tough game for me to watch. They're going to get absolutely shelled, but it'll be fun.
Are you gonna have the double-sided jersey? That's the question.
So I have been looking into it, and if anybody listening, anybody watching knows a place where I can get a double-sided Odell Beckham Jr. Browns Giants jersey, I will pay any amount of money for it. I think just be a cool thing to have, but it'd be the perfect thing to wear for that game. But no, I've been looking into it. Above anything else for that game, I'm excited for my family to come out and see a Browns game. My dad was out last year for the Tennessee game, but nobody else has been to a Browns game out here in my family. But we're going to witness our season ticket holding team just get decimated. I'm not looking forward to it, but that's besides the point. There is a lot of cool stuff going on with the Cleveland Browns. The huge announcement today was that Hard Knocks, in-season Hard Knocks, like they did with the Miami Dolphins last year, is going to feature the Cleveland Browns as well as Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, and Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if you looked at the schedule the Browns have from December 3rd, which is that start date on, but they play those three teams each once. They play Kansas City and they play Miami. So it is a gauntlet of a schedule for those 5 weeks and maybe beyond. Who knows what happens after that, but it is a gauntlet.
I've talked about that a couple times when I've gone live about how I think that's honestly the most important stretch of football because yeah, you got those games in the beginning where you should win. Like realistically, the Browns should be losing 1 game to 2 games max this first 5-6 weeks into the season. But the real money is going to come in that stretch of football because of the fact that you're playing your division opponent multiple times in the back end. And oh, by the way, it's going to be in the thick of things where it's already November, December football, which is tough in itself in the AFC North. So it's almost like the NFL knows what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah, I think they definitely know what they're doing in that sense because it's the most competitive division in the NFL. Someone just argue flat out the best division in the NFL. It's going to be a really, really cool thing to see all of those players, coaches, the behind the scenes aspect of it. One thing I'm really looking forward to, especially as it relates to the Browns, maybe we get an inside look as to what Mike Vrabel is doing. Yeah, how he's involved in the team because he comes on as it's either a consultant or an analyst. It's not necessarily like a firmly founded defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, whatever it may be. It's not a firmly founded position. He's more of a floater, an analyst. I'm fascinated just to see what he's doing with the team. Maybe Hard Knocks gives us an inside look. I'm curious.
We know we're gonna see some right. It's almost like all the right part. He's too big of a personality not for him to have an impact into it. You would think, right?
I agree. Yeah.
And it's kind of. I was thinking about I wanted to go off subject and I just can't remember where it was because I was talking about these big personalities. Where were I can't even think of it. Like, give me a second. I might come back to me.
No, you're good. You're good. But I'm with you. Vrabel is a huge personality. And like, I saw him get fired from Tennessee in the offseason, and I was like, that might be the best head coach available. Obviously, he had Harbaugh and Belichick too, but it's like, maybe that's the best head coach available. And obviously, he doesn't get a head coaching gig for different reasons. I think a lot of people said that he wanted more of a Belichick type hold on the organization where he was essentially the GM too. And that's a really tough thing to ask. But, if you're Mike Vrabel, maybe you come to Cleveland and you get your foot in the door in the front office world too. Who knows?
You think that it's kind of one of those things where he's just keeping his cards tight because we know the Ryan Day seat is, a little warm, maybe a little more warm.
I didn't want to say it, but that was my thought in the offseason too. Like, if I didn't think Ohio State had a horrible season this past year. I really don't. I think they got way better this offseason transfer portal as well as guys that were staying. So yes, his seat is warm. His seat might be hot. I think they're going to be really good this year. So I don't think we get to that world where Ryan Day is gone and Mike Vrabel steps in. But absolutely, it's a very real thing. I mean, he's an Ohio guy, so it could very, very well be a real thing.
So I just remembered my point. And and the reason why I wanted to go off of it was because I don't know if you saw the clip of Deshaun Watson from the Lockerverse where he was talking with Quincy.
I don't know.
And they mentioned Dorsey.
I did. Yes, I did. Yeah.
It almost sounds as if Kevin Stefanski has handed the torch over. I wouldn't say the torch, but he's in control of this fire, which is the offense. And it's looking like it sounds as if Kevin Stefanski is going to have the media role. How is that going to work out exactly? That's what I'm interested to see. Maybe they give us a glimpse of that. Yeah. Because we all know Kevin Stefanski is here to call plays. He's the offensive mind, the genius behind this all. And there has been no definitive answer or anything around him actually saying he's giving it up. But Deshaun Watson's coming out of his mouth saying, hey, It's nice to have Dorsey come in here, and Kevin's like, we can just push him off. You do your thing, and then I'll be the look over it. So I think that's what I'm most excited to see right now. That's no one's talking about.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, maybe we walk into the year where he's passing the torch to Ken Dorsey, and Kevin Stefanski is kind of like the media figurehead. Like he is the not talking head. That's not the best term to use for it, but kind of the person at the forefront of everything that takes the blame, the criticism, as well as the praise for everything. That could be the case. Maybe it changes throughout the year too, and we have no idea. That's the interesting part about it starting in December. Like we're never really going to know what it's like at the beginning of the year. That's the beauty of in-season Hard Knocks. Obviously, you have Chicago during the preseason and the very, very beginning of the NFL season. You got the Giants throughout the offseason too. It's a full year for Hard Knocks, but that September, October, November time, like we don't know what's happening with the Browns outside of what we see in the normal media, not Hard Knocks beyond the scenes type thing. So I'm also fascinated to see it, but I'm glad you brought up Deshaun Watson because I wanted to talk a little bit about OTAs and mandatory minicamp. The throwing schedule for Deshaun Watson has kind of been what we've expected, right? He's thrown a couple days, not thrown a couple days, basically alternated during mandatory minicamp this past week. I'm not sure if you saw any of the clips, watched any of it, but what were your first impressions of Deshaun Watson post shoulder surgery this past week?
I didn't get to see much, but I did see little spurts. And I always like to take those things with a little bit of grain of salt because
Yeah.
us as Browns fans know how we can like tend to put a little bit more into it than we need to.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, as long as he's healthy, I'm just going to trust and believe that he's going to come back because number one, everyone here's the thing that bothers me the most about Browns fans and everyone that has their criticism for Deshaun Watson. It's like everyone wants to give up on him, but the people that are around him day in on a day out basis have nothing but raving things to say about him. And it's like, well, what are they supposed to say? Bad things about him? No, but they go above and beyond to express how special of a talent that this guy is and how different he is when he's on the field. So if these people that are saying that and people that have played with him continue to say that, why am I going to listen to people that are on the back, the back end that are not around this guy day in and day out
Yep.
when the people that see him every day are telling us that he has it? So I'm just going to trust it. And as long as he's healthy, he has to lead the way because this is the biggest year as the franchise has had since '99. It's not close, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you too, because it's not only you have a really good roster, you have expectations because you won a lot of games last year and you won a lot of games with a beat up roster. And
Hmm.
I know we talked about that a ton on our individual accounts together all year last year. Like the Browns had no business winning as many games as they did with the injuries that they had, but they find a way. That's why you have the coach of the year, defensive player of the year. Like that's kind of how it goes with the Browns situation. But last year, you saw the offensive line injuries, obviously Nick Chubb. The DBs were rotating in and out every week, it seemed like, but the quarterback was definitely the most notable. And I'm really curious to know your thoughts on this because I've taken a pretty firm stance that I think the Browns are going to wind up trading either Jameis Winston or Tyler Huntley before the season starts. I think they have very unique leverage in the sense that they have three backup quarterbacks that they trust. One of them, they're not paying almost anything, and that's DTR, right?
Hmm.
It's a second-year guy who they really believe in. Whether he played his best or not against Pittsburgh, he's won an NFL game as a starter. He's done enough. He's improved. He's shown a good amount of things. So I think you have two proven guys in Jameis Winston and Tyler Huntley. And if you have a team that has a backup go down in training camp, you now have two good proven backups. Well, three reality, but 2-3 good proven backups that you can trade for an additional pick. My question to you is which three quarterbacks, I guess which two quarterbacks outside of Deshaun Watson make the roster this coming August?
It's such a tough question because I think like you tie in the fact, the Browns fandom and how we are with players and how it's just like Jameis Winston is almost like a perfect personality for the city. And
Yep.
I think you take that into account. But at the end of the day, I think it's more so relies on like who fits the offense the best. And if you take personality out of it, wouldn't doesn't Tyler Huntley fit the scheme a lot better if you had to think about the direction of the offense that they want to go? Dorsey has had success with more mobile quarterbacks and people can escape out the pocket. Not saying Jameis can't do that, but if I had to pick three, it almost feels like can you leave DTR on the practice squad? Can he be one of those guys? Because it would make the most sense to keep him on the practice squad, let him develop. He can still get reps in when needed. And like we all know, injuries come a dime a dozen. So it's like, I keep the young guy there and let these AFC Pro Bowler,
Yeah.
call it what you want, Pro Bowler and
Yeah.
a veteran sit behind you and keep the insurance.
I am in full agreement with you that Huntley is not only a better fit, I think Huntley's just a better player than Jameis Winston. Like,
Hmm.
I think we've seen that, Pro Bowl aside, because that was crazy, but I think he's a better player. I think he offers you more. He's shown some really, really good things in Baltimore. Absolutely fits the scheme better. And that's the other side of the coin, right? You could leave DTR in the practice squad. What does that do for him? Does he try to go somewhere else? Does he want to go somewhere else? Because again, he started in the NFL. He's won games, regardless of how old he is, how much experience he has. He understands what he can do. I think the Browns understand it too. So that's another very interesting trade piece. But I just look at the way Andrew Berry operates. I think he's not afraid to pull triggers on trades. I think he's really, really smart in terms of loading up for those mid-round, third, fourth, fifth round picks. And he's really good at drafting with those picks as well. He's got a lot of gems in the draft at that spot. I think if he has the chance to pull the trigger, he does because of the backup quarterback environment in the NFL. So many players went down last year. I doubt we see it like that again this year, but injuries do happen. It's a very real thing. You see the Falcons drafting Michael Penix at 8. You see teams taking serious, serious precautions at the backup quarterback position. The Jets did it with Tyrod Taylor. The Giants have 3 guys who you don't know who's going to start. All of them could. Like, they have a lot of really, really comparable quarterbacks. And I think there's a lot of rosters in the NFL that do as well. I think Denver is a place where you have a couple guys, same level. You don't know necessarily who's going to start. Minnesota, JJ McCarthy probably will start, but you don't know him. Sam Darnold. There's a lot of teams who have taken a lot of pride in building depth at quarterback. I think it was asked because of last year. But, if you're Andrew Berry, you see that, hey, maybe this guy's backup isn't going to be ready for weeks 1 through 4. They put him on the injured reserve. Did they give us a 4th round pick for one of our quarterbacks? How can we say no to that, right?
I love me some Andrew Berry, and I think he's one of the best, and he is a wizard. He literally plays chess when other teams are playing checkers, and you can tell that in the way he operates. I think a bigger question is, do people understand the plan at hand? And right now the plan is Deshaun Watson. So I think as long as Deshaun Watson is here and you have him under contract, you know what the plan is. So I'm more so thinking like, yeah, there is those trade pieces that you can have with Tyler Huntley or James Winston to secure a 4th, 3rd rounder. But everyone's looking into this next draft saying, oh, Browns are finally going to be back into the 1st round. It's like, yeah, we are. But the plan is still Deshaun Watson. And if you can get a player that can fit this offense or whatever need you need be, whether that be drafting at the position or trading backwards, I think all the cards are still riding on 4. I don't think anything is going to operate unless it makes sense for 4. And
Yep.
however you can play that into the future. I think the trade assets and how players get moved, we may see a fan favorite guy get moved or around this offseason or this year. And I think the big one is going to be next year, which is Amari Cooper. I
Yeah.
think it's inevitable that it's going to happen. This is the business part of it. He's going to hold out, letting them know that he wants more money. He's got one more time to get that big contract. So there's so many assets and trade pieces that Andrew Berry can work with. And yeah, definitely one of those quarterback positions. How long is Huntley and Winston signed for? Are they both 1-year deals?
Huntley is absolutely 1 year. I think Jameis is 2, but Huntley is 1 year, and it's very much incentive based, which is another really good thing by Andrew Berry. Where if this guy, I don't know how it works, whether it's preseason snaps, regular season snaps. I mean, he gets paid as much as he plays. That's the whole point of an incentive based contract. So great on Andrew Berry for that too. And I mean, you're not paying DTR much. Jameis is a little more expensive. I want to say it was in the range of $4 to $5 million, but at the same time, it's not an enormous cap hit for a guy that's probably going to be your backup week 1, if I had to guess.
And with any, going back on Brown's history, more than likely the backup always finds a way onto the field for at least a week or 2.
Yeah.
And we know Jameis can hold it down. So I like the plan. I like where they're going, man. Everything
Yeah.
feels like it's finally in sync. There isn't anything that I'm looking at and I'm like, man, they just haven't quite figured this out. It's like, no, they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. That's for certain, for now and the future, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And I think just looking back on past Browns teams the past few years, you felt like there's glaring holes in the roster,
Hmm.
whether it was receiver. I think linebacker was a big one. I think it's gotten better this year. And, the play of JOK raises the average of that group significantly for sure.
Contract coming up as well.
Yes, that's another big one for sure. But again, like it's not like you said, everything's aligned. They're dotting their I's, they're crossing their T's, they're making sure everything is in a line for, like you said, the biggest year in 25 years. But I will say, Amari Cooper brings up a really interesting point because you talk about making sure everything works for Deshaun Watson. You're talking about a new offense again, where Deshaun Watson has to adapt, has to do new things, potentially without his number one receiver in whatever capacity that may look like. I'd be shocked if he wasn't on the field week 1. I think we can both agree with that.
Oh,
but
100%.
The contract stuff is very, very tricky. And, you watch Jerry Jeudy get the extension that he got this offseason, which I think was a very good move. Like, I think it made sense. And, as you watch guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Smith get paid throughout this offseason, that move financially looks better and better because Judy's here. The market keeps going up. Like, it makes a lot of sense that they extended Jerry Jeudy. But now the market's at its highest. I've gone on the record and said it a couple times, so I might as well just say it again. I think CeeDee Lamb gets paid more than Justin Jefferson before this season starts. I think he's going to get a new contract. Jamar Chase maybe gets one. Like, the market's going to keep improving. And Amari Cooper knows he won't get that money, but he'll get close to it.
Oh, he'll get something.
if you're Andrew Berry, like, do you try to pull the trigger now on a guy who's going to be 30 going into next season and say, hey, we want you around for X amount of years? Or do you give it a year, say, hey, you're going to be a little bit older, we want to see you go prove it for one more year and deal with free agency when it comes in a year? I don't know. It's a really tough spot for Amari Cooper and Andrew Berry.
It's also going to be a new feel in a sense too, because has Andrew Berry used his franchise tag at all? I can't think of a time where it's been a significant move where he's like, let's franchise him. Who's the last guy?
Did they franchise tag Nick Chubb before they signed him to the extension? That's the only one that I could think of.
I don't think so, because I don't ever remember a headline being because that would have made him the highest paid for the year, right? And I don't think he's ever had that.
I don't know, because I think the extension happened a couple years ago. Regardless of if he got franchise tagged, that's the only one that I can think of. I don't think they've used it on a lineman, at least that I can remember. No, yeah, I don't think so. The only time, like, if they ever franchise tag somebody, I think it was to buy time for an extension. I don't think anybody's played on the franchise
David,
tag.
It might have been David.
Really? Okay.
It might have been before he got paid, because remember he wanted out. But Kevin Stefanski was like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
blame him. So March 7th, 2022, Cleveland placed the franchise tag on David Njoku.
Okay, there you go.
So maybe you see one of those things where it's like, because my gut tells me they love Cedric Tillman. I feel like you see a lot of clips of Cedric Tillman. I think you've seen a lot of flashes. Like, the one thing that stood out to me most with Cedric Tillman is his energy. He brings that AFC North type energy. And I think if you saw him in the black and yellow or the purple and black, you would view Cedric Tillman as this guy that was just dangerous. The block that he laid out, what week was that? Was that against the Steelers? It might have been the week we got destroyed and they threw DTR out there and he made that crazy block. It's just one of those things where you're looking like, you don't see that out of a Browns receiver as much. He's got real talent, and I think if you can find a way to tap into it, man, you can play your cards right with Cedric Tillman. He can be your number one moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you also people forget that Elijah Moore is out there too. That's a true slot guy, and I think Jerry Jeudy can do a lot of good things from the slot, but I think the Browns want to use him more on the outside. So the grass is not always greener, especially when you get rid of a talent like Amari Cooper. I'm going through my top 100 list of players in the NFL right now. He made the cut. Like, he's an elite talent in the NFL, and I think a lot of people see that. I think man coverage, he's pretty much unguardable. He can take anybody in the NFL, and I'm sure he's confident in doing that. But going to be 30 years old, like I said. Browns franchise, injuries. Browns franchise going in a different direction. You're going to have to pay JOK. I don't think they let him walk. Like, it gets harder and harder to find a way to believe Amari Cooper will be here long-term. Long-term probably means 3-4 more years, but it is harder to see that.
I think the one thing that you can make this stuff work, when you see great organizations and great franchises stick together, it's winning. Are we going to win? And if we are going to win, I think Amari Cooper, you look at Amari Cooper and be like, okay, he's still 30. We can definitely get you. You probably do the contract where it's like one of those things. You sign up for 3, 4 years. You realistically are going to have him for 1, 2,
Yeah.
and find a way to move him, push the money, move the money around some way, shape, or form. Um, and that's why I think this season is so big because why would Amari Cooper walk away? You're in the perfect situation. You're getting 1,100 yards every season, balls coming your way. You and four have a connection. The city loves you. They're gonna pay you. It may not be, 5, 6, 7, or even 10 million more than what you would get anywhere else, but you have a legitimate shot to go out there and win a Super Bowl. And I think, it comes to, have you made enough money or do you just want to keep making more of it? Amari Cooper's made a lot of money in his career. If he's got
Yeah.
a good situation, I don't see why he would up and want to leave it.
It's a very, very good point, especially, at his age, right? Like I see players as they get older want to win more than they want to reset the market or get paid like a certain tier of player at their position. Like that, I think that is going for Amari Cooper and the Browns and bringing him back. But we do wait to see. It's going to be a long couple months until training camp starts, really just a month and a half, but a long month and a half till training camp starts. So I'm curious, who is your number one player you are looking at for Cleveland Browns training camp 2024?
Training camps are always just I love training camps, honestly. Training camps are my favorite time. This is you talk about how I got started into this industry. The first year I dabbled into my Browns comment or my Browns content journey, I went to 14 out of the 16 training camps. The
There
only
you
two I
go.
didn't go to were the ones that were in Indianapolis that
Mhm.
year. So I love training camp, but I think I mentioned his name. I don't know if he'll make big news in the training camp, but I just think there's something with Cedric Tillman that I love so much. um, and there's always that one receiver. Last year was Andrew Hawkins. He took the Browns, fan base by storm. I would love for Cedric Tillman to go out there and just be like, "Dang, this is why didn't we get this last year?" I would love to hear the Browns fans say that because when they say that, that means he's doing something good. So we'll go with Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman is a good call. I think, especially, if Amari Cooper does hold out there in camp, he'll get
Hmm.
more opportunities. So definitely a good call. I'm looking at DeJuan Jones for a lot of different reasons, right? Coming back from an injury, but more logistically, just to see where they have him on the line.
Hmm.
First of all, if he's starting or not. Like, I'm curious to see if he's starting or not. And if he is, what side of the ball he's on. I'd be shocked if we did not see him on both sides of the ball, left and right, but which side he's primarily on, who's the first five or the first two tackles, really, that's really all I'm looking at. The first two tackles they roll out there for the first one-on-one team period. Like, I'm really, really curious to see what the offensive line looks like, specifically at the tackle position, because the interior is not really going to change, at least that's what we expect. But the tackles, I'm curious, but most specifically DeJuan Jones, because I think he possesses a potential and a talent that those other guys don't along the offensive line. And I think you have to find a way to fit him in. I've been saying that a bunch, so I'm curious to see where they put him.
It's funny you say alignment because I think we also should be watching a lot of Jedrick Wills. I
Yeah.
think it was never a tool problem for Jedrick Wills. There's all the tools in the toolbox. But you're working with Roby versus DeWalt. You know what I mean? It's about the motor inside of it, and sometimes he lacks motor. And when you're coming up, this is a contract year for him, I believe.
Yep.
So it's like how bad do you want it? Like, because he can go out there and be, I mean, he has not been terrible. You just look at him and be like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
just the
Yeah.
play is still going on. Like, get and block somebody. You know what I mean? And I think if you got a guy like DeJuan Jones on the other side who comes in and got praised from every avenue of media that you could get, I'm gonna look at myself in the mirror and be like, I ain't gonna let this dude come over here and just show me up like this. Let me put some pep in my step. And if the Browns don't want me, I'm gonna go sign a contract somewhere else. Like
Yeah.
this is a big year for our offensive line as a whole because we don't have our holy grail coach as well. So
That is true.
this is huge.
Yeah. One of my former co-hosts, Eric Metcalf, talked about that a ton. Like, you are changing offensive line coaches. That matters a lot. That's why these mini camps and OTAs and training camp in general is so important, because those new coaches come in, you got to build relationships with them. But I'm with you. Offensive line is probably the biggest talking point, at least as it relates to roster construction going into the year, because I think we're pretty confident who we're going to see elsewhere, assuming everybody's healthy. But Zay, we appreciate you hopping on today. Where can everybody find you on the socials?
Chef Zae or Chef Zae 23 on all platforms. Just type in Chef Zae and you'll see my face pop up.
There we go. Awesome. And if you guys are Browns fans, you're new, make sure you're following both of us as well as Honor the Land on all of those socials as well. Our joint account where we will be talking about the Browns throughout the 2024 NFL season. Very excited for that. But Zay, again, appreciate you hopping on. Any last words for the people before we sign off?
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
All right, guys, we appreciate you. We will see you next time.